بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره. We, alhamdulillah, managed to talk about some aspects of prophethood. We talked about the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a kind of inclusive general guidance. In addition to that, He has extra guidance for us as human beings in the form of revelation and reason. Again, something that I should add is, although He has provided all human beings with intellect and access to revelation, but for those who actually embark on this journey and benefit from those general guidance, types of guidance, He has additional guidance for mu'mineen. So the people who have already become a believer, they receive even more guidance. When Allah talks about Ashab Kahf, the people of the cave, Allah says that إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى. They were a group of young people who had faith in the Lord, and we increased their guidance. Okay? So, you can be guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every day, for every situation. And one meaning of Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim is this. In addition to the general guidance, we ask Allah to give us more guidance, because for every step we need guidance. So this is also something I wanted to add. Then we talked about different ways of communicating to prophets. We said there are sometimes angels involved as messengers. Sometimes it comes from behind a veil. Sometimes it's directly put in the heart and mind of the prophet. Then we talked about the fact that to be able to receive the guidance and revelation, you need to be purified, you need to have great intellectual capacity, you need to have great heart, sharh sadr. And then we talked that when guidance comes from Allah, it leaves no ambiguity. It must be very clear. It's like seeing. And then we talked about the fact that revelation in the case of Quran involved both words and meanings, not just meanings. These are some of the things that we discussed in the last session. Now I want to mention the relation between reason and revelation. You know, one of the questions in philosophy of religion, and that is a discipline that tries to study questions but not within any religious tradition, from outside. Philosophy of religion. So they say these are issues that all religions or some religions deal with. For example, arguments for existence of God, problem of evil, about, for example, the life after death. Many issues they discuss, religious language. So they want to discuss it from outside in a rational way, and to see whether these are consistent, whether these are meaningful. So the main two things for them is consistency and being meaningful. Anyway, one of the things that you find there, which is concern of all religions, is how to define the relation between reason and revelation. In some religious traditions, reason has no great role to play. If it has, it's only to help you come to religion. After you come to religion, you don't need a reason anymore. In some cases, even for coming to religion, they say you don't need a reason. You just find this interesting, you believe in this. Even some people have gone so extreme that they say, not only there is no need to have rational support your belief, you can believe in something which is irrational, and even some people say we believe because it's irrational. You know, like Trinity. St. Augustine said, I believe in Trinity because it is unbelievable. So this is the way he was looking at it. In Islam, we have great role for reason. As we said, reason is a hujjah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Kazim alayhi salam, in a very beautiful hadith, talks about intellect. And alhamdulillah, we had 11 lectures on this hadith in Haram of Lady Ma'suma. It's available online. Imam Kazim on the intellect. You can find it. It's hadith very beautiful about the significance of aql and knowledge. And one of the things that Imam alayhi salam says is, and I mentioned in the outline in the first night, Inna lillahi ta'ala ala nas hujjatain. Allah has two types of hujjah, two types of proof. You should have respect for both of them. You should love both of them. You should believe in both of them. One is the external one, which is aql, hujjatan zahira wa hujjatan batina. Zahira is external one, which is revelation in the form of prophets, al-anbiya, al-rusul. Internal one is aql. So prophets and aql, these are two types of hujjah that Allah has provided us with. If you read that hadith, which is, you can find it at the beginning of Kafi, the first few pages of volume 1 of Kafi, you find very special statements, very powerful statements about aql. For example, one of the things that Imam Kazim says is that the people who have better understanding and better use their intellectual power, they are in the highest levels of iman. So understanding and aql is very important. In our hadith, as you know, we have this great emphasis on thinking. Even hadith says, tafakkuru sa'ah afdalu min ibadat as-sana. If you think, if you contemplate, if you ponder for an hour, of course sa'ah doesn't necessarily mean 60 minutes. Sa'ah means a portion of time. Now let's say 1 hour. If you think for 1 hour, is better than 1 year of worshipping without thinking. In some hadith says 60 sana, better than 60 years of worshipping. In some says 70. So there are people who just worship without understanding, and there is a person who understands, who thinks, who tries to rationalize. Even sometimes our hadith says a sleeping of an alim is better than ibadah of a person who doesn't understand. Because if ibadah is without understanding, just your body is involved. But if it is with understanding, it means that your mind is functioning. If your body is also coming with your mind together, that's excellent. You think and do ibadah. But if it's just thinking and just ibadah, thinking is better than ibadah. So, in Islam, especially in the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we have harmony between both. One of the things that you find in the Quran is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks everyone to think. And when Allah criticizes those who have no faith, The main criticism is why they don't think. He doesn't say directly why you don't believe. He says why you don't think. Because if you think, then you come to the right conclusion. So people should think. Even in Surah Qaf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the people who went to hell, because you know Quran sometimes projects the future in the past sense, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we said yesterday, has no past, present, future. So he talks about future as he talks about the past events. When they go to hell, one of the things that they say is لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. If we were listening or thinking, we were not put here. It means that even the criminals, the sinful people who have gone to hell, their aql was functioning properly. So the problem is not that their aql misguided them. The problem is that they didn't listen to their own aql. They didn't follow their own aql. Because aql of mu'min and kafir, if is followed, gives the same direction. You know, this is something very important. It's not that people's reasons or intellects give them different direction. Aql all the time gives the same direction. In some people, maybe direction is more clearer. If you are a pious person, if you are a person who can resist against his temptations, you get clearer message from your aql. Sometimes because I very much want something, okay, I don't let my aql to say without shyness. Yeah, I want to silence my aql, or I want to force my aql to say something that I like. Otherwise, aql is giving the same thing, same answer to people. Aql is a hujjah of Allah. Aql can never betray. Even if a person is drunk, his aql is not misguiding him. But because he's drunk, his aql is not functioning. Do you understand the difference? Like, for example, we can have an alim and we listen to him. We can have an alim and imprison him. But alim is not guilty. If you imprison alim, he's not guilty. You have not listened. You know, in this beautiful dua after dua sabah, in the morning when you go to sajdah, yeah, we say what? We say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, I have several problems. One is that my qalb, my heart is covered. My soul is with problems. And my aql is maghloob. Aqli maghloob means defeated. وحوائي غالب. عقلي مغلوب وحوائي غالب. وطاعتي قليل ومعصيتي كثير. So aql is maghloob. What does it mean? It's like a king that has been arrested and put in prison by the invaders. Hawa is ghalib, means hawa nafs, appetites, our lower desires, have invaded our soul and put aql, which was the king, the guide, in prison. So aql cannot function. So in all people, if they really follow logic, if they really follow decisive, rational arguments, they come to the same conclusion. This is why we don't have any problem with people thinking, with people trying to understand. Indeed, we have to think, we have to understand. The only problem is that sometimes people, they just follow their own guessing and opinions, and they think this is aql. This is the problem. Sometimes they say, for example, why, for example, in Islam we have this ruling or that ruling, it is not rational. But if you ask them why it is not rational, in the end of the day, you see, they don't have any argument. They just say, this doesn't look good. I don't feel happy with it. Or, what people say about us, what the majority of people in the world say. These are not rational arguments. Anything rational, you have to be able to prove it a step by step. One of the things that is very important is that anyone who has a rational claim must be able to present it to people and ask for verification. If I say my idea is rational, but I don't share it with anyone, or I have exclusive access to this is a problem. Anything which is rational, you have to express it in the way that everyone can understand. Maybe they don't accept, but they should be able to judge about it. And if it is really rational, the majority of rational people would accept. So, in Islam, we don't have any conflict between reason and revelation. Indeed, they support each other. These are two hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, what is the reason that Allah has given us both? Why we are not given just aql or just prophets? Why we are given both? The answer is that these two supplement each other. None of them suffices the other. First of all, we need to follow our aql to come to prophets. If a prophet comes and says, I am sent by God, do you believe? Just if someone claims that I am a prophet, you believe? There were many pseudo-false prophets. We had many people in Arabic, they are called mutanabbi. We have nabi and we have mutanabbi. Mutanabbi has two meanings. One is someone who prophesizes, who can see the future and inform. Another meaning of mutanabbi is someone who claims to be a prophet. We had even ladies who claim to be prophets. And someone said, if you are a prophet, then what do you say about Rasulullah saying there will be no prophet after me? Rasulullah said, La nabiyya ba'di. She said, Rasulullah didn't say, La nabiyyata ba'di. I am a nabiyya, I am not nabi. So, there were people who claim to be prophets. How do you judge? You cannot say, I believe in him because he claims that he's a prophet. You have to use intellect. You have to listen to this person, see what argument he has, what proof he has, what miracles he has. Therefore, you decide. So when Rasulullah went to people and said that I have brought you a message from Allah, or Jesus or Moses, they didn't expect people to accept without reason. They gave them reason. They gave them signs. Even the Quran says bayyinat, clear signs, mu'jiza. Yeah, because people have to be convinced. It's not good people follow you blindly. If people follow you blindly, then also a day comes that they would leave you blindly. If people accept an alim, a teacher, a marja with understanding, then even when later people question, they will not give up. But if they go after emotions, then next day maybe emotions goes wrong and they leave him. So our ulama said that for principles of faith, you have to have rational backup. So we assess the claim of a person who says I am a prophet by aql. Okay? Can you assess the claim of a prophet by anything other than aql? For example, someone says, I refer to my heart. Say, no, you cannot judge just by referring to your heart. We have great respect for heart, but when it is in good condition. We have in our hadith that if you want to understand what is good, what is bad, refer to your heart. Istafti qalbak. Ask your heart. But this is for the people who are in the state of fitra, in the state of purity of heart. Otherwise, human heart has this potential that can be transformed, can be made upside down, so you can reach the point that when you do bad things, you don't feel anything wrong. Or you can reach the point that even when you do bad things, you enjoy. There are people who enjoy doing bad things because heart can be transformed. And this is why you never find qalb or heart is hujjah. Conscience, you never find conscience is hujjah. Why? Because these are subject to change. Aql is hujjah, because aql always gives the same direction. Revelation is hujjah, not heart. So, I cannot say I follow this prophet because in my heart I have good feeling towards him. Or I don't follow this prophet because I don't have good feeling. No, it must be reason. So, the first role of reason is to encourage us to inquire about religion, about God, about prophets. Second is to verify the claims made. The third role of reason is that after you are convinced that this is a true religion, this is a true prophet, true message, after you are convinced, again you use your reason to understand the message of God. This is very important. It's not that you use aql to come to religion, then you switch off aql and just follow the scripture without aql. Ayatollah Jawadi Amoli has beautiful, analogy here. He says you can think of aql in three ways. Sometimes people think aql is like a key, and religion is a room. The way to get into this room is to use the key. So you use your aql to come to religion. Okay, this is good, but it has a problem. What is the problem? The problem with this analogy is that when you enter the room, you no longer use the key. So can we say when we become Muslims, Christians, Jews, then we don't need aql? No. Even when you are within the boundaries of religion, you need aql. Otherwise, you come up with very funny understandings of religion. So, to say that aql is like a key is not sufficient. Some people say aql is a scale by which you measure everything. So everything you are told in religion, you use aql as a scale to weigh, to measure whether it is acceptable or not. Again, this is not good. Why? Because there are many things that you cannot measure and weigh by aql. Okay? Because aql is one way of understanding. For example, can you measure something which is to be understood by your perception, by your senses with aql? For example, can you measure by aql which flower has better fragrance? Can you measure by aql the taste of ice cream? This is not understandable by aql. So if you are a great philosopher but have never, tasted ice cream, you cannot understand the taste of ice cream by aql. If you are a great philosopher but you have not been to heaven, how can you describe heaven? Or if you are a great philosopher, how can you decide particulars? For example, how many rak'ah of salat I have to do every day? You cannot understand by aql. Okay? So, to say that aql is a scale, a measure that we have to use for everything is not acceptable. And inshallah I will explain later. This doesn't mean that we accept things which are against aql. But we have things which are beyond aql. Inshallah, I will explain later. The third analogy which we accept is aql is neither a key in that sense we explained, nor a scale in the sense that we explained. Aql is a light, a torch. You use this torch in order to come to this room, open the door and get in. But also when you are inside the room, you need the light. So aql is needed all the time. There is no time that you say, I don't need aql. We need aql all the time. In the Quran you find Allah many times He says, there are signs for the people who think. لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. So aql is needed even inside religion. So aql helps us to inquire, to come to conclusion, but even after we come to religion we need aql. But why we need revelation? Why we need another form of guidance? Because there are many things that we have no way to understand or verify through aql. In Islam, this is a very important point. In Islam, we don't have anything against aql. But we have many things beyond aql. These are two different things. To be against aql, contradicting aql, we don't have anything. But to have things that aql is silent about. Aql cannot make judgment because it doesn't have access, doesn't have data, doesn't have proper access. It can be. If I ask you, how many people are in the next room? Can you give answer by aql? Sit here, use aql, logic, philosophy, and then calculate and say how many people are in the next room? No. This is not rational matter in the sense that you can verify by aql. This is something that you have to go and see or ask people who have the information. So there are many things in this world that we have to ask or we have to go and see. For example, what actions would be very beneficial for our next life? I can understand to a certain extent with my aql. For example, I can understand with my aql that if I am a kind person, if I help people, if I respect and love my parents, these are good. To this extent, I can understand. But there are many, many details that I cannot understand. For example, how many percentage of my money I have to give to the poor? Or how should I divide my charity? Or for example, how many times I have to pray? How many times I have to fast? When should I go to Hajj? I understand that I should worship God, but how to worship? When to worship? We don't understand from aql. So we have to either go to the next world and see the results and then come back again and do proper life, which unfortunately is not possible, or we have to ask people who know this. Because we don't have any second life to experience, so we have to now listen to the people who have information about this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has informed them that if you do this, this is the outcome. If you do that, that is the outcome. So that we don't need to take any risk. So, revelation teaches us the things that we are not able to understand by aql. يُعَلِّمُكُمْ مَا لَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ. Teaches you what you were not able to know. Also, revelation confirms the things that we were able to understand. We need confirmation. Because, in very important fundamental issues in life, even if you can understand by aql, still you need support. Because you cannot take any risk. There are things that I can understand by aql, but people disagree. Sometimes when you want to make a big decision, For example, I understand that bribery is bad, even rationally. Yeah? But if a big offer comes, then there is a chance that I may, start, doubting, Abortion, I understand, is bad. But when I see many people commit abortion, then maybe I start doubting perhaps abortion is good, So, even with respect to those things which we understand by our aql, there is a need for support, for confirmation. Someone tells me that this is proper position, never give up. And if you do this, you will get this reward as an incentive. If you do wrong, there would be punishment, again as a sanction. So, revelation gives us knowledge of what we cannot know, confirms what we were able, what we were worried, we were not sure, we might, doubt, and also gives us sanction. So we need both reason and revelation. And also I explained the position of heart. I said heart to some extent can understand, but unfortunately it can be transformed, it can misfunction. For example, there is a hadith that if a person kills one person, if he commits a murder, then he would no longer understand the ugliness of murder. There are many things that before you commit them, you understand their ugliness. If you commit them, then your sensitivity would stop. Therefore, it's very important not to commit any sin. And if you commit, not to repeat. Because if you commit or repeat, gradually you would lose sensitivity. Another discussion is about characteristics of the prophets. I think Sheikh Jahangir has mentioned this point, so I go very fast. The prophets, in addition to the general qualities that every believer should have, they have some special qualities. One is they have some types of knowledge which are not conventional, which are not coming through learning, attending a school, passing exams. They have God-given knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we gave him, referring to a prophet, he says, we gave him from ourselves knowledge, min ladunna ilma. And this is why our ulama have coined the term ilm ladunni, a knowledge coming from us, not through a teacher, not through a book, not through a course. They have such knowledge. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't go to any school. He didn't take any lesson on writing and reading, and it was, of course, because of Allah's plan, so that no one would say that he has learned. Quran says, ما كنت تتلو من قبله من كتاب ولا تخطه بيمينك إذن لارتاب المبتلون. You didn't read anything, you didn't write anything with your hand, because if you had done so, mubtalun, those who are after false accusations, they would have said you have learned. Even despite the fact that Rasulullah didn't go to any school or any teacher, still they used to say there is a person who is teaching Rasulullah, and Rasulullah is taking biblical stories from that person. And the Quran says that person is not even speaking Arabic. لِسَانُ الَّذِي يُلْحِدُونَ إِلَيْهِ أَعْجَمِيٌّ. So, to leave no chance, Rasulullah even for one day didn't go to any teacher. How did his knowledge come? His knowledge come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. through revelation. Of course, the Quran says to some extent me and you also can have this type of knowledge. Even me and you can have direct knowledge coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ittaqullah wa yu'allimkumullah. The Quran says you should have taqwa, then Allah teaches you. So if you have taqwa, Allah tells you certain things that He doesn't say other people. In tattaqullah yaj'al lakum furqana. If you have taqwa, Allah gives you furqan. Furqan is something by which you can distinguish between right and wrong, good and bad. Or in a hadith which all Muslims have narrated, Rasulullah said, if you purify yourself for Allah for 40 days, then the fountains of wisdom would flow from your heart to your tongue. Man akhlasa lillah 40 sabahan jarat yanabiul hikmah min qalbihi ala lisaneh. So if for 40 days we manage to do everything for the sake of Allah, it's not very difficult. Just 40 days. But unfortunately, another sense is difficult because we are so much attached with dunya and our own, ego, that even for 40 days we cannot make everything for the sake of Allah. If for 40 days you manage to do everything for the sake of Allah, then the fountains of wisdom will flow. Jarati yanabi'ul hikmah min qalbi. So what about Rasulullah, who for 40 years did everything for the sake of Allah? If this is for 40 days, so what about who was for 40 years not doing anything wrong? In that society in which shirk, polytheism was dominant, he never worshipped any idol. Even when he was a child and they wanted to put, they had some hairs, some protections, and they used to hang on the neck of the children for protection. But sometimes some people, they put names of the idols. Rasulullah removed. Even he was a child, he removed. He never worshipped any idol. He never got involved in any criminal action, any mischief, any corruption. Indeed, from childhood, he was supporting good causes. You know the story of Helful Fudul. There was a treaty that Rasulullah, when he was very young, made with some young people in Mecca, because a stranger had gone to Mecca, had entrusted his valuables to someone, and that person denied. A stranger cannot do anything. So he said, I deny and take everything for myself. And Rasulullah with some youths were very sad. So they made a treaty that we support any person who is mistreated. We support every person who is claiming his rights. And even after he became prophet, he said, even today I am still loyal to that treaty. If today, I'm called, I will go. So, for 40 years, when someone is doing everything for the sake of Allah, for sure, the fountains and rivers of knowledge come to him. Another quality of the prophets, which is very important, is their willpower. A prophet has to be very determined. A prophet cannot be a person who quickly doubts his ideas, his mission, his policies. It's very difficult for a leader to be able to be firm in his decision. Of course, there are people who are firm in their decisions because they are stubborn. They are not intelligent. But to be intelligent, to be humble, to be truth-seeking, and at the same time to be able to be firm, it's very difficult. To consult people and listen to everyone seriously, not as a show off. But then when you come to a conclusion, to stand by your conclusion, it's very difficult. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had this quality. You know, he stood against the current. He stood against a society that worshipped idols, and idols were the source of their pride and also business. It was not only honor and it was not only religion, it was also business for them, because people used to come from other places to show respect to these idols and bring lots of, business and income to the people of Mecca. So when they saw Rasulullah is asking for Tawheed, they didn't have problem with Tawheed from just a theological point of view. They had problem because shirk was the source of business, power, prestige. They didn't want to lose this. So they did everything to stop Rasulullah. If Rasulullah was not strong, if he didn't have great willpower and determination, he could easily give up or stop. For example, they try to bring, lots of temptations. They try to frighten. They try to torture. They try to kill people. They try to confiscate their monies. They put them 3 years, and it was not known that it's going to stop for 2 years. It's possible to be permanent. In the Shi'b Abi Talib, no one is able to do business with them. No one is able to marry them. So if he was not strong, he could fail. This is why in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, among all the prophets, there are 5. Of course, the Quran doesn't mention the number of 5. Number we know from Hadith. But Quran says there are prophets who are the most outstanding, and they are ulul azm. فَاصْبِرْ كَمَا صَبَرَ أُولُو الْعَزْمِ مِنَ الرُّسُلِ. Be patient like those prophets who have determination. So, out of all humanity, 124,000. Out of 124,000 prophets, 5 are selected. So this is a select of the select. What are they called? Ulul Azm. One big problem that we have is we don't have determination. We know certain things are good. We have no doubt about them, but still we are lazy. We don't do them. We know that we should say our salat on time, but then we find all the time excuses not to do it. We know that we shouldn't tell lies, we shouldn't backbite, but we find excuses. Allah says Prophet Adam made that mistake because he didn't have determination. Lam najad lahu azma. We didn't find determination in him. Because when Allah told him, Iblis is your enemy, look at the mistake that he made. I don't want to say we are better than him. We just want to get lesson. Otherwise we make worse mistakes. But Allah told him, Iblis is your enemy. أَنَّ هَذَا عَدُوٌ لَكَ وَلِزَوْجِكَ. Also Allah told him, لا تقرب هذه الشجرة فتكون من الظالمين. Don't go even near this tree. So, the enemy was introduced. The tree that they had to avoid was mentioned. Still, they listened to that enemy and ate from that tree. There is no way to justify this mistake. Why he made this mistake? Because he didn't have that willpower. Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam has very beautiful saying. He says, إن أفضل زاد الراحل إليك عزم إرادة يختارك بها. The best provision that a wayfarer needs, if you are traveling, the best provision is determination, by which you choose God over anything else. You know, if you are determined to go to, for example, Mashhad, then you will do your best and you will go. But if one day you think, okay, let me think about whether I should, then one day say, what should I do with my work? What should I do with my family? How I get a visa? How I get ticket? When I'm going there, who is going, to welcome me? If you think about all these things, you never go. But if you are determined, then you can find solutions for all the problems. If you want to do something, you do it. Determination is very important. Another thing is isma, infallibility. The prophets were ma'soom. You know that this is an area that we have some disagreement among Muslims. Some Muslims believe in isma, but in a limited way. Because all Muslims believe that prophets were ma'soom, infallible, in their prophetic job. Okay? So as a prophet, they were ma'soom. But as a person, there is disagreement. Some Sunni theologians have the idea that the prophets in their personal life, they may make mistakes or commit sins. Of course, some say minor sins. Some say unintentional sins. So there are differences among themselves. So some of them say they may make major sins unintentionally. Some say they may make it minor sin intentionally. But we Shia say that they don't make any sin, major, minor, intentionally, unintentionally, they don't do it. Also about the period before becoming prophet. They say they can make major, minor, intentionally, unintentionally. They can even worship idols. Okay? Just before becoming prophet, they should be clean. It's like, for example, bringing a criminal from prison, sending him to a camp. After he's okay, then we make him a prophet. We say, no, this doesn't work. There are many different arguments for this. Arguments from Quran, from Hadith. But I want to mention one intellectual argument. I say, when Allah sends a person to guide people, in addition to all the qualities that we said he should have, the purity that he should have to be able to receive, revelation, in addition to all that, one important thing that this person needs is trust of people. He must be trustworthy. Because if people have a slight doubt about him, they would not follow him. When people are 100% sure, they don't follow sometimes. Yeah, they find all the excuses. Now imagine if people had a little excuse to question this person. For example, if this prophet who is telling us something, in his personal life, he forgets things, then how many people would trust him when he is reading Quran or talking, in mosque? It's not easy for people to make distinction, to say, okay, in his personal life, he can make mistake, he can forget things. But when he is reading Quran, he doesn't forget anything, he doesn't make any mistake. People cannot make this distinction. If they see this person is, for example, mistreating his wife and children, then on member he says you should be kind. Who is going to listen? Who is going to say, okay, that was a mistake, unintentional? Or, for example, if a person, he himself was up to yesterday worshipping idols, doing crimes, now people don't trust him. Imagine the situation of Rasulullah. Rasulullah for 40 years had history with these people. He was not unknown to them. You know, sometimes you bring an unknown person and ask people to believe in him. It's very difficult for people. Allah is fair. He doesn't ask us to believe in someone that is unknown and just he says, okay, from now on you listen to him and, you know, accept if he is saying okay. No, Allah, in addition to bringing someone who has miracle, brings someone who is known to us, who has history with us. Indeed, he is from us. He always sends prophets from the same people. Okay? This is to make it easy for people. You know, if a person who has been brought up among you tells you something, it makes it much easier for you. So, Rasulullah for 40 years lived among these people. And in all those 40 years, they never heard any lies from him. They never saw him doing anything wrong. They never saw him doing any mischief. And they had so much trust in him that even in the time of Jahiliyyah, they gave him the title of Al-Amin. Yeah, you know, sometimes a person gets a name, a title. His title was Amin, honest. Even Mushrikeen, after 13 years of opposing him, still they used to leave their valuables with him. They didn't believe in him. They wanted to kill him and his followers, but they were sure that the safest place to leave something when they want to travel is to live with him. And this is why when Rasulullah was going to Medina, he still had some of the trust and amana of people, and he asked Imam Ali to deliver the trust back to them and then join him. This is, you know, very special. Someone you fight, you want to kill him, but you are 100% sure that he is honest. Even after 13 years. Okay? So, Rasulullah, with such a clear history with them, still they didn't believe in him easily. 13 years, the majority of them opposed. Even after Medina, they made lots of, you know, wars against Rasulullah. Now imagine if Rasulullah himself was like one of them. If he was, you know, drinking, gambling, doing mischief like them. Sometimes, you know, mistreating people, sometimes, you know, taking the money of people. How could they accept him? They could say, you know, we don't believe in you. You are just now pretending that you are chosen by God. So trust is very important. And this trust cannot be established when people think that this person can do in his personal life after becoming prophet or before becoming prophet, he can make mistakes and commit sins. For people, such fine theological distinctions is not possible. People cannot accept that a person can forget in finding his home address, and when he reads 600 pages of the Quran, he doesn't make any mistake. You know, imagine if a prophet, when he's going back home, he doesn't find his house. Okay? Then how can people trust him when he reads the Quran? If a prophet, when he is saying his prayer, makes it shorter, how can people trust him? So we have to look at it from a rational, general perspective. So we believe that the prophets never made any mistake or sins all their life, because in this way people could trust them 100%. Now you may ask, was this isma, this infallibility, a gift from Allah or their own achievement? If it was a gift, okay, Allah can give me this gift, then I become ma'soom. What was special with them? You know, sometimes people say, if Allah gave them as a gift, as a mawhiba, so He can give it to everyone. If it was their achievement, how can someone be immune from mistakes even in childhood? Making mistake is very natural for human beings. How can you make mistake even when you avoid making mistake even when you are a child? The answer is, Ismat is a gift for the people who qualify themselves for this gift. What does it mean? If you do your best and you are determined to avoid sins and bad actions, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you with avoiding mistakes. If a person 100% tries not to do anything bad that he knows and he realizes, then Allah saves him from many things that he may not know. Especially because if Allah wants to make him a guide and role model for other people. You know, the term ma'soom means saved, protected. So it means that it is an action of God. But an action of God for whom? For someone who has done his best to be pious, to be moral, to be virtuous. You may ask, what about childhood? The answer I gave yesterday. Reading Dua Nudbeh and Ziyarah of Lady Fatima, I gave the answer. That if Allah knows that when you become understanding and mature, you don't commit any sins, even from childhood or even from before birth, He would give you additional support. So if a person all his adult life remains pious, even from childhood, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects him from the things that would damage his future. So this is about Isma. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.